The Parrot in the Cage by Mulk Raj Anand. Mulk Raj Anand, 1905 to 2004, was an Indian writer in English. Notable for his depiction of the lives of the poorer castes in traditional Indian society. One of the pioneers of Indo-Angling fiction, he, together with R.K. Narayan, Ahmad Ali and Raja Rao, was one of the first India-based writers in English. To gain an international readership, Anand is admired for his novels and short stories, which have acquired the status of classics of modern Indian English literature. They are noted for their perceptive insight into the lives of the oppressed and for their analysis of impoverishment, exploitation and misfortune. The Parrot in the Cage by Mulk Raj Anand. In The Parrot in the Cage by Mulk Raj Anand, we have the theme of conflict, desperation, loneliness, hopelessness and struggle. Taken from his selected short stories collection, the story is narrated in the third person by an unnamed narrator, and from the beginning of the story the reader realizes that Anand may be exploring the theme of conflict. Rukmaniyari is suffering from the conflict that came with the partitioning of India. She is an old woman who is not able for the type of change that came with the partitioning. If anything, she is left in a desperate state and is reliant on others to help her. Some who do and others who chose not to. There is also a sense that Rukmaniyari is miserable. She knows that she is not self-sufficient and is relying not only on others but on the Deputy Commissioner, who appears not to be too concerned about the plight of Rukmaniyari or those who have incurred difficulty with the partitioning of India. The only sense of hope in Rukmaniyari's life is a parrot in the cage. Yet she does not have the energy to talk to him for sections of the story. However, it is interesting that despite the struggles that Rukmaniyari faces, she does, when she is a little stronger, think about the parrot's well-being. Even if it is only at the end that the street vendor agrees to give the parrot a gram. The fact that Rukmaniyari is elderly might also be significant, as Anand may be using an elderly character to highlight that some of the most vulnerable were part of those who incurred difficulty during the partitioning. They had no place to live and their livelihoods were taken away from them. Something that was not appreciated by those with a responsibility for the partitioning. Those with a responsibility, Deputy Commissioner, most likely thought more about their own lives than they did the citizens in which they had a responsibility to. There is also a sense of hopelessness in the story. Rukmaniyari not only has nobody that she can rely on, but she has no idea what will happen to her either. She may have had peace of mind before the partitioning. This is no longer the case, with each new day bringing more troubles on Rukmaniyari. There may also be some symbolism in the story which might be important. In many ways, the parrot in the cage mirrors Rukmaniyari. She too, like the parrot, is trapped with no place to go or without any alternatives that might improve her life. The fact that the parrot calls out one of Rukmaniyari's friend's phrases and Rukmaniyari doesn't answer could suggest that though Rukmaniyari might have once had friends, this is no longer the case. They too in all likelihood have been affected by the partitioning. If anything, Rukmaniyari has no control over her destiny. She has little or no money. Her friends are not there to help her and she is relying on a man, Deputy Commissioner, who appears to be more concerned about himself. In reality, Rukmaniyari is in a lonely and hopeless place, with very little if any light shining on Rukmaniyari's future. If anything, Rukmaniyari is a victim of the partitioning and her only companion is her parrot and a reliance on the goodwill of others. The end of the story is also interesting, as Anand does shine some positivity on Rukmaniyari's life through the act of goodwill of the street vendor. However, this act of charity may only be fleeting and may not last long, with the readers suspecting that life will only get harder for Rukmaniyari. She does not have the tools needed to survive what has happened, nor does she have the resources needed to start her life afresh. It might also be important that Rukmaniyari lies unconscious after trying to see the Deputy Commissioner, as symbolically this could suggest that Rukmaniyari has been defeated by the last piece of hope she had. Symbolically, she has been killed by the lack of action from the Deputy Commissioner and the desperation of others to try and talk to the Deputy Commissioner, helping to knock Rukmaniyari off her feet. If anything, there is no system in place to help people like Rukmaniyari. they will be left to fend for themselves. Which again suggests to the reader that Rukminiyari has a very bleak future ahead of her. Not only is there an external conflict, partitioning, but there is also an internal conflict within Rukminiyari. She has to learn to survive on her own without the assistance of others. Something that may prove difficult for an elderly woman. The decisions of others have had a drastic and dramatic effect on Rukminiyari's life. End of the summary. Thank you. Thank you.